Darkcast Network. Welcome to the dark side of podcasts.
Grab your marshmallows and sleeping bags for the Burnt Marshmallows podcast, where cozy mysteries come alive around the crackling campfire. Picture yourself wrapped in a warm blanket, sipping hot cocoa as we share spooky tales that will whisk you away to a world of mystery, ghosts, and perhaps even an occasional monster. Crime-solving spirits, urban legends, Bigfoot, we've got it all. Join Burnt Marshmallows every Tuesday, wherever you listen to podcasts for cozy mysteries.
Hey, this is a true crime podcast, and it's for the LGBTQ because, yes, they too matter. And I practice the dark art of swearing sometimes. Listen at your own discretion. Hey there, Rainbow Warriors. Welcome to Beyond the Rainbow, true crimes of the LGBTQ+. And this is a minisode, something I haven't done in quite a while. I've been such a busy bee lately with my craft business, the network, the animals, my kids, and another case I've been working on about, well, I'm not going to say, because I have no idea when I'll finish it. So I think I'll finish this month out with some minisodes. Just a quick update on the animals of Seabreeze Studios. Everyone's doing great. My doggy Nilla is actually able to use her back right leg that was broken. All of our water physical therapy has sure paid off. And the German Shepherd puppy, he's doing wonderful. Back to his old self. I probably won't talk to you all until after Thanksgiving, so I want to wish you all a great and happy Thanksgiving. I guess it's just an American Thanksgiving this month. But for everyone else in the world, happy days to you too. You know where you can find me by now on the socials, so I'm just going to skip that. I do want to thank all of you who have sent me ideas for upcoming episodes. I really appreciate it. You're great to think of me and reach out. In another case I'm currently working on, I'm going to collaborate with Courtney from Book of the Dead podcast. If you've not listened to her show yet, please give it a go. You're going to love it. Oh, and I think I might have pissed off Blaze Bernstein's mom with my coverage last episode of her son. She reported me to YouTube for using Blaze's picture. I apologize, and maybe I'm just ignorant, but I really thought what I find in my research is public domain, including the pictures. I would never want to upset the parent of a victim for any reason. Now, let's get to our minisode. You might have noticed the title, Never Name Your Child Richard Davis. And this is something I feel very adamant about. I'm not sure how many of you have noticed the abundance of evil killers named Richard Davis. Covering and listening to a bunch of true crime cases, I sure have. I mean, even if Davis is just the middle name and the first name is Richard, don't do it. So there's Richard Allen Davis, who kidnapped and killed a 12-year-old girl named Polly Klaas in Petaluma, California. Richard John Davis. He killed a woman named Nancy Marie Benelak in Sacramento, California. Richard William Davis was a child rapist and possible serial killer who did his deeds around many states. I'm sure there's more as well. In fact, if I remember right, not too long ago, another podcast did one on a Richard Davis, but he had a different last name. So Davis was his middle name. The Richard Davis of this minisode is Richard Dean Davis. He was a serial rapist and a killer from Missouri. And I think if he hadn't gotten caught, he probably would have been a serial killer as well. This Richard Dean Davis was a white cisgendered man with a bisexual girlfriend and accomplice named Dena Riley. I'm not gonna lie, this couple were dirty. And that's not just figuratively speaking. They appeared unhygienic at best. Richard went by Ricky, and he grew up in a broken home. At the age of 6, he picked up a rifle and he accidentally shot his dad. Thankfully, he only wounded him. Shortly after this, his parents divorced. But the whole gun incident may have affected his life from there on out. In middle school, Ricky would ditch classes a lot and run away. By 7th grade, he quit school and his home life. And by that I mean he ran away again. He would couch surf at the homes of older friends, or he'd live on the streets. He really started to get in trouble and become a chronic delinquent at the age of 13. Ricky spent most of his teen and young adult life in and out of detention centers and jail. His life of crime started as petty theft, and then it graduated into much worse. At the age of 22 in 1987, Ricky had only been out of jail for theft for a few months when he was accused, arrested, and convicted of raping a woman. Ricky testified at his trial that the sex was consensual, but the jury of the case learned about the knife Ricky held to the woman's throat, and they decided differently, and they found him guilty. Ricky was sentenced to 25 years, and he served nearly 18 of it. After his 18-year stint in prison, Ricky was released. He claimed to have found God and religion. In his first 9 months of the release, he was as pure as 100% virgin olive oil. He got a job. He showed up on time. He reported to his parole officer consistently. He went to AA meetings and sex offender meetings on a regular. He stayed out of the bars, and he even registered as a sex offender when he moved. It truly seemed as though Ricky was trying to turn his life around. But as we know, outward appearances can be deceiving. During this time, Ricky was developing a fascination with choking women out while he had sex with them. It actually started to become an obsession for him. As Ricky worked as a janitor at a metal factory, he met a woman who also worked there. Her name was Dena Riley. Dena, who was kind of a mess, was instantly attracted to the 5'8", 145-pound Ricky. Ricky at the time possessed rippling muscles as a result of constantly working out in prison. He also sported tattoos, furthering his bad boy look. One thing Ricky did do was keep his hair in an out-of-date mullet, but Dena still was thinking Ricky was her person. The two dated and soon moved in together in Independence, Missouri. Now, Dena was another sad type of story. She grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, and just a few weeks out of high school, she married Mark Riley. They had 3 children in the first 5 years of marriage. By the time she popped out her 3rd child, Dena was no longer interested in being a wife or a mother. In 1990, Dena got deeply into drugs, and she started to sleep around with a variety of people. Her husband divorced her and was awarded custody of their 3 kids. She just didn't care anymore. The following year, though, Dena had another baby with some other man. That child was also taken from her. Dena became homeless at times. She jumped from menial job to menial job, even sex work to support her meth habit. She even did a few stints in jail herself. She finally landed a job at the metal factory and met Ricky. Now, while Ricky didn't seem like much of a prize to most, Dena wasn't either. She was usually strung out on meth. She was overweight and her teeth were rotting out because of all of her drug use. Ricky thought he was something of a player, and he hit on just about all women he came across, annoying most of them in the process. These two were quite the match. The author of a book called How Children Become Violent said that the trauma of shooting his dad at the age of 6 gave Ricky a detachment disorder. That, accompanied with his parents' divorce and then going in and out of juvenile delinquent centers, most likely played a big part of Ricky becoming a violent adult. When Ricky and Dena started to live together, they both became involved in the meth prostitution situation that was prevalent in Kansas City in 2006. The couple would invite a girl who was hooked on meth. Maybe she was a sex worker, maybe she wasn't, but she was definitely hooked on meth, and they'd ask her back to their place and they'd film sex with her, with Ricky choking the woman out. After the woman left, the couple would get off on watching the videos later. Another woman named Lori somehow became involved with the couple. She probably had a meth addiction, and she too was invited back to their place. She was shown a video of a threesome, Ricky, Dena, and whoever they had brought home in a sexcapade. But with Lori, the couple asked her to kill a woman and dispose of her remains with them. At that ask, Lori got the hell out as quickly as she could. Which is good. That means that the meth didn't totally rot her brain yet. In May of 2006, 41-year-old Marcia Spicer got mixed up with this couple. And of course, filming it, Ricky and Dena sexually tortured Marcia and they suffocated her to death. On the 15th of May, a fisherman happened upon the body of a woman floating in a creek near Bates, Missouri. The woman was naked, beaten, and strangled to death. This was Marcia Spicer. And the odd thing was, Marcia was an old friend of that woman I just mentioned named Lori who got the hell out. Lori read of Marcia's murder, and she wondered if it was just too much of a coincidence, or if it was the odd couple she had met. Either way, Lori went to the police. And 2 days after Marcia's body was found, police visited Ricky and Dena's. Already knowing that Ricky was a previous sex offender, they immediately saw a video camera aimed at the bed, and they found some weed, which was a direct violation of Ricky's parole. And then Dena admitted to the police, "Yeah, my boyfriend is into rough sex." Police were very wary of the couple, but they didn't have anything concrete to detain him. Then, on a hunch, police asked the couple to leave the premises while they obtained a search warrant. Not knowing the law at all, the couple complied and they drove away while the police waited for their warrant. It took a few hours, but they got their warrant, and they found a tape in Ricky and Dena's player. The tape was of Marcia Spicer bound with duct tape. She was also being tortured and then strangled by Ricky. The police searched the place and they found a similar tape of another woman, and that proved to be 36-year-old Michelle Ritchie, who'd been missing now for several weeks. Police had no clue who the other woman in the tape was. All they knew was that the woman looked terrified. She had bright red skin and a vein popping from her forehead. So what they decided to do was to distribute the video without the graphic sex depiction, of course, to see if the general public recognized her. It didn't take long for a woman to come forward claiming that the woman in the video was her daughter, Michelle Ritchie. Her daughter had struggled with a meth addiction, and she was an acquaintance with Marcia Spicer, who also had the meth addiction. By now, Ricky and Dena were on the run. Police issued an all-points bulletin for the fugitives. They were in St. Louis for a few days and they were going to head to Illinois. On their way, they stopped in the small Missouri town of Perryville and they saw Dena's friend Susan, who lived there. The couple admitted to Susan that they had raped and killed a woman, and they were in search of a place to go and kill themselves so they didn't have to be in captivity. But instead of continuing on to Illinois, the couple went back to Kansas City to score more meth, and then they headed to a tiny town in Kansas. This was where Ricky's sister and brother-in-law lived with their 5-year-old daughter. Ricky's sister had absolutely no idea her brother and his girlfriend were fugitives. The next day, Ricky and Dena put Ricky's niece into their car. The little girl's parents were going to follow in their car. The entourage were headed to McDonald's. But Ricky pulled over and told the girl's parents that they wanted to eat elsewhere, and he wanted to spend some time getting to know his niece. The little girl's parents agreed to let Ricky and Dena spend a couple hours with the girl, and then Ricky and Dena were supposed to drop the little girl off. But that never happened, and Ricky's sister called the police. That's when she learned of the couple's criminal acts. Oh my God, can you just imagine? Here you have your own brother, and you trust him with your child, only to learn he's a sex offender and a murderer. I'd be fucking terrified. And Ricky's sister would have been right to be terrified. Ricky and Dena sexually assaulted his niece along back roads on the border of Kansas and Missouri. But strangely enough, they didn't kill the child. 5 hours later, in their drug-induced stupor, Ricky called 911. He explained that he and his girlfriend were lost. They wanted to kill themselves, but they needed to drop a child off at a friend's house first. The dispatcher handed the phone to a commanding officer, and he asked them why they wanted to kill themselves. That's when Ricky handed the phone to Dena, who told the officer, "Because we did a lot of very bad things, and we don't want to be caught by anybody." As Dena was speaking to the police, Ricky was nodding off to sleep. He was still driving, mind you, and that's when she began to scream at him to wake up. But it was too late. Ricky had fallen completely asleep and run his truck off the road into a ditch. A farmer passing by saw the little girl in the truck. He stopped and offered to help. Ricky and Dena were so high they couldn't even stand up. Ricky was unscathed, probably because he was so relaxed and sleeping. But Dena, she was bleeding from a broken nose. And the little girl had a small cut above her eye. Her wound was treated at the hospital, but then she had to undergo surgery for damage done to her vaginal area and possibly anal region from the sexual assault. You know what? I just don't give a fuck whatever somebody's background is. You do not do that to children. Ricky and Dena were arrested for multiple infractions. First, luring women into drugs for sex. Next, for rape, sodomy, and murder. And then for kidnapping and sexual assault of a child. Ricky was found guilty at his trial, and he was given a death penalty in 2007. And although he did have that death penalty, Ricky was executed, but it wasn't by the state of Missouri. In 2019, karma got him when he died on death row from COVID. Dena was given multiple life sentences for kidnapping, murder, rape, and sodomy. Oh, and that bitch, you know she cried a river on the stand, but it didn't help. She most likely will never be free. Rest in power, Marcia and Michelle. I love you, Rainbow Warriors. You matter. And remember, it's not a crime to be gay unless you're a murderer.